So the question today is, have you ever considered pitching yourself to podcasters? Sounds like a really great alliteration. Diana, welcome to Reality Coaching for Writers, where what do we do again?
We offer just the real stuff that can help you succeed. No fluff here.
No fluff, no fluff. So let's jump in and talk about what does it mean to pitch yourself to podcasters? I mean, it always sounds like something out of a Star Wars episode.
Well, I recently ran across an article on Jane Friedman's website, and it was written by Amy Bernstein. And she had mentioned that, she listed a couple additional ways to add to your book launch theme. But, we also think about just building our platform and getting the word out that we have some things available. And I want to read it because I want to get it right. There are 464.7 million podcasts. That's a lot of podcasts.
That's a lot of podcasts.
Now, not everybody's going to want to hear from Eddie Jones or Diana Flegel on those podcasts, but within those, there are many that we could pitch our book projects or our overall area of expertise to. So I just thought we're going to go right along those points, Eddie, that you mentioned, because they're really great points for consideration. Okay. And I really want our viewers to consider this. So the first thing, is when you're pitching, you're writing a pitch letter, a pitch email, and it's very similar as pitching yourself to an agent or an editor at a publishing house in a proposal. But so you're going to, first of all, pick a podcaster that really would be interested in what you have to offer and that their listeners would be interested. So you're going within your target audience. So now that you've found that, target a couple, you might have 5 podcasters that you'd like to pitch to, then you're going to address just what it is you want to discuss. You'd like to discuss what you can bring to the table. So you're going to mention, first of all, you definitely want to tell them that their area of expertise and that you believe their readers, listeners are interested. So you want to acknowledge what their audience is and who that is, and tell them, say, I enjoy your podcast. Watch a few so that you're not lying. And it's always good to get a lay of the land. You're going to test these areas before you submit to them. But
so this is the equivalent of a publishing, before you go to a publishing house, knowing what submission guidelines are and pitching to the right podcasters without wasting your time or wasting their time. Going, no, we don't do
exactly. Yeah, that's good. That's so good, Eddie. Yes. So then you want to clearly and succinctly describe your brand. Now, this is a whole pitch. It's not the time or place to ramble, and like you said, waste their time. So you really need to know. So I believe your audience would be interested because this is my area of expertise and my topic. And then you've already told them what your brand is. And then you're going to mention that you'd also be willing to discuss some broader topics.
Okay.
I know, Eddie, you and I've been invited to speak at writers' conferences, and just share a little bit about how that looks sometimes, because, it isn't always what you originally might pitch to somebody.
You mean like being on faculty at a writers' conference?
Right.
Yeah. So you do got to get put in a box, right? You just do. when I was being invited to be on faculty, it was a lot of times it had to do with the whole Amazon platform thing, and the Amazon ads. Of course, Vince Davis now does that praise Jesus, kind of took that off my shoulders. Vince was in one of my classes. He learned from me, and he went out and learned how to do this better, and he's making money at it, and he's doing what I used to do because I don't want to do it, right? I think that's what I'm saying. Somebody stepped in, but once you kind of get put in that pigeonhole, you don't really get invited or asked to teach about other things because they have other faculty for those other things, right? So a little bit of, I would think the podcasting is going to be the same thing. You're going to get put in a box or a genre or a profile, and if you want to break out of that, you're going to have to go reach different podcasters for that, would be my guess. And I think that's doable. I mean, if I were doing this for myself, I would be pitching to podcasters that, focus on YA middle grade, primarily boy readers or, that genre. And I'd talk about pirates and mysteries. But then I could flip hats and go talk to other podcasters about ministry to homeless people,
Right.
That kind of thing, and because that's a passion for me. So it sounds like a lot of fun, a lot of work, but it sounds like a lot of fun.
Well, and once you get your basic pitch letter down, then you massage it and adjust it to their particular guidelines or their particular audience. And so as Eddie, you and I have recently taught on at the Philadelphia conference in particular, we talked about what it means to work with a writing coach. And we discussed that. So even though you're an author, you also coach writers. So, and you work with the homeless in the city of Raleigh. So you have other facets. And when anybody brings you onto a podcast, they tell the audience a little bit about you. And they will mention that you have a book. And even though that might not be the particular topic they've invited you on for, they will at least let their audience know that you have one. And if you connect with their audience, they're going to be interested in finding out more about you. So it's an opportunity. I mean, out of 400 plus million, I think there's an opportunity for our listeners, Eddie, to find a podcast that would be interested in hearing something they have to say.
Yeah, I'm laughing. I'm trying to keep from laughing out loud because suddenly it occurred to me, oh my gosh, if Jesus had lived right now, he would be inundated with podcast invitations. He would never be able to go out and heal anybody because, if you look at his clock, I've got to get off this podcast because I got 3 more lined up right behind this. Hey, I'm Jesus Christ, I'm the Son of God. They were, that's the way it would have spread. Yeah.
Yes, and once you get an in with a podcaster and they know your areas of expertise, then sometimes they will come to you. For instance, right now, every news media throughout the world, they're grabbing their experts on Israel, and they're bringing them on, and that's a serious, more serious, on a serious vein. But for instance, when I was a literary agent, I had a client who was pretty much an expertise on C.S. Lewis. And we had actually sent a couple articles to cbn.com, and they had printed her an article she had written like several years before. And then when it came up that some anniversary of Lord of the Rings or something to do with C.S. Lewis came up, the director at cbn.com contacted me and said, Diana, would your client be willing to write something for us on this topic? Because, we're going to be all week focusing on this anniversary related to C.S. Lewis. Well, that was wonderful for my client and for me, and to be able to connect my client with them again, because she had, remembered that I had a client like that. And there's many times publishers contact agents or reach out to authors.
This sounds an awful lot like what I guess still happens for I don't know, news shows, traditional
Mhm.
news shows. I guess I'm sure it still does have them, but it sounds an awful lot like that. And back in the day, like you said, back, only 15 years ago, 10 years ago, you were trying to get your clients onto CBN and other news organization shows for the PR work. So this is a
Right,
PR effort, is really all we're talking about. It's a different
right.
way for PR effort to go out there, and it's a podcast, which it is kind of interesting. It's a new
It
take on
is.
it.
Yes.
Um,
And
so
it's
that's
a
right.
wide open market. Yeah.
So let me ask you then, is in your research, is there a market, or are there, I'm guessing there are people that are actually PR podcasters, like you pitch to the PR person and they go out and do the pitch on your behalf because they've got the contacts with the podcasters. In your research, did you come across anything like that?
No, but it would make sense there are. So Eddie, you and I, we're our own PR people for
Yeah.
for what we do. But you think of these ones that get millions of viewers, have millions of viewers, they would definitely have to have a gatekeeper. They would have to. And so um, I'll research and see if we can find a list of those people, because I had a list as an agent of media people to pitch to at different news things. And I would constantly keep my clients in mind. Had several clients on 700 Club, Charisma Media. We would pitch to their radio program and their Salem Broadcasting and their magazines. And so I kept a list like that. And so I'll do some research and find out. And then when we find it, we'll post it on our Facebook page, and then we'll add it to the description box of this episode. And but that's a great question, and I would love to provide that resource for
I'm
our
thinking,
viewers.
I'm thinking there's two layers to it. One is what we're talking about here, which we're the individuals actually doing the pitching to the podcasters,
Right,
which is the main part of today's episode. But then there's that second layer where you actually are going to pitch to the podcaster PR groups or individuals who would actually pick you up as a client, right? So
right,
then, because they're going to make money on the back. I'm assuming it's PR, so you're going to pay. You're going to be paying for your PR person, and if they can get you on enough shows, and they're getting paid per episode that you're on podcast, and you're a high value client for them. So there's
right,
actually two ways to pitch this.
right. There's syndication, just as you can become a columnist in a newspaper, then you could become a frequent contributor to their podcast and be, because they look for that, just like you and I look to fill episode content. We have guests come on, and yeah.
So what else on your list is there that we haven't hit on yet?
All right. So you want to keep in mind what additional things you want to mention, what additional things you'd be comfortable talking on within your area of expertise. And then, like, it could be as simple as Eddie, for you, talking about the right craft of writing, or others might just like to talk about the creative life. How do you sustain a creative life while holding down a 9-to-5 job? That would be an interesting episode for someone. But so again, it's mainly, and this is where you need to focus and really see clearly. Eddie and I, you and I've talked about our mission statements, and this is where I see one is so important. Is it a mission statement encapsulates all of your whole umbrella, and underneath that umbrella, Eddie, we mentioned 3 things you do, and you're also husband and father, so you could show up on Focus on the Family's podcast talking about fathering adult children, while keeping a sense of humor, right?
Yeah.
So I just want people to think of this we've talked about article writing, but I want you to think of podcasting as a whole nother land to enter into to use your gifts and share your knowledge.
And you don't even have to wear pants, just a shirt, a blouse or a shirt, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's what I told my friend today. It's kind of where in the world is Diana?
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Where's
right
Diane?
now I'm currently in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, in the home of a friend. And so the background will be changing as I drag my suitcase across Pennsylvania and then back down to Wilmington, North Carolina. But with a stop at Asheville in between. So
I was just thinking about that time you and I went out to Virginia Beach to be on the CBN show, and and we drove all the way out there to do the launch of the first pirate novel, but we didn't have a book. Remember that we didn't have a book.
yes, to show.
The book, they have a book to show. All we had was, so I printed out a cover and we just taped it onto the front of somebody else's book and just held it up in front of the camera. Again, it is fake, man, but if it's video, you got to do it. So no pants, no cover, we're good.
Yes. And you get better at it as you go, and so just like some authors, I would pitch them as far as towards articles and things like that, because that encourages them. You get your feet wet, and you get used to it and you feel more confident. Your confidence grows. So we've been at this over a year, Eddie, you and I don't sweat the small things anymore. Like you said, the haircut, the clothes, the makeup, it's like, okay, here we go,
Yeah, and it does seem to me like, especially because our audience is primarily writers, and
Right.
I know, sort of like you said, a lot of writers are going to be watching this episode and going, "But I'm not a subject matter expert on anything." Well, either that's true or it's not true, and if it's true, then you're going to have a hard time landing with a publisher, because they're going to go, "Well, what makes your story unique?" And you go, "Out nothing." Okay, well, we're not interested in that, right? So if a publisher is really interested, or an agent is interested in representing you, you must have something unique about your story and yourself. It has to be there, otherwise they wouldn't have shown any interest, right? So probably what you're saying is go back and look at what you've already put together in your book pitch proposal, right?
Yes.
And maybe have somebody else look at it from a different perspective and go, what do I do that makes me special and unique? And let somebody else tell you and say, this is what you do really well. If you can do that, if you can figure out what that is, then when you get on the podcast, you will be completely comfortable, because you'll be doing the same thing you do all the time.
Yes.
If people ask me about pirates, I can talk about pirates all day long, and I don't need any reference point. Start talking to me about Israel, I can speak to some degree, but not as much. I might have to do a little more research on that. I couldn't tell you anything about Italy, so don't get me on for an Italy thing, right? So where your comfort zone is where you're going to excel.
Yes. 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 And so let's see what else she said. So again, go back to your book proposal, because like you said, Ari, you have all those sections in there, about even yourself, about the author. You let them know that you've been published in Charisma Media News. You've been published in Women's Day. You've been published in Christianity Today. You are a columnist in your local newspaper. List your credits and let them know that you're comfortable. And if you have any video, put the link to a sample of you speaking or being in front of people, because podcast is live and it's in front of people, or recorded like we do, but still they want to see that you're comfortable, and that would also alleviate a little bit of their reservation, and it would help them see you as a viable guest. So Eddie, we have sample video from all kinds of various things, and of course we can send a link to this.
Yeah, and if I were gonna do this, I would pull that video and then give it to a video editor and say, go pull the best and put it together in a montage. Montage, is that it?
Yep,
Collage,
that's
montage,
it.
something
Yeah.
like that. Put it together with the transitions and give me a less than 2 minute, because that's my criteria, less than 2 minute pitch, video
Yes.
pitch. Anything
Yeah.
to me, anything more than, well, it's, you go back, whatever the YouTube short, whatever the
Hmm.
YouTube definition of a short is, stick to that. That would be
Yeah.
our recommendation.
Yeah.
And create, if you want to do it, create multiple ones of those, with different outtakes. If I were going to do this, that's what the approach I would take, and just pay the bucks to do that.
Hmm. And then you can use that on your other social, you're going to use it for more than one thing. You'd be able to use it as a reel or so once you get this broad thing down, like we were saying, you can be specific then in all the other ways. So yeah, I like the idea, Eddie, of making a couple little videos.
I'm sitting here thinking though, Diana, that the other thing that maybe authors have, that nobody else is going to have. We've all usually have at least one or two unique stories that we love to tell over and over again, and our family have heard them all they ever want to hear, and so have our friends. So we really need a new audience to hear these same stories that we just love telling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So we've already, to a large degree, perfected those pitches already, because we've told those stories or those encounters over and over again. At first, I was thinking of the people that have had near-death experiences. Well, you say I've had a near, and if you can verify it, with some documentation, yeah, a podcaster might have you on. Down the chain, they might have you on for that because it sounds interesting, right? A lot of people want to hear about that. But the other thing that we're gonna be able to need to do as the person being interviewed is be able to talk succinctly and short, in short, not like you said, not ramble. So you ask me a question, I give you the answer quick, and I try to get out of here in 30 seconds. That kind of thing. With that answer, you need to get good at that.
Yes, yes, and I think that's what I took to Twitter so quickly in the past and encouraged my clients to be on Twitter was because they had to learn to express themselves in 140 characters. And so and writing short story, again, it's a great exercise because it teaches you to choose your words wisely and not ramble, and yes, so definitely you want to hone that down and get that short. There was one other thing here, and it was so good. They said, don't particularly pitch yourself as selling a book. Pitch an idea or a great question that would be fun to explore. And I like that because you are bigger than your book, but then your book is part of who you are. For instance, we have scheduled next week, you will be in Italy. And we will be with I will be with Zena Dello, who is always fun. 30 minutes goes so quickly. And then the following week, Craig von Busick will be on, and we're going to talk about his latest release. But Craig is multi-published. He's a hospice chaplain right now. There's so much more about Craig, So we will probably touch on his book, but then we'll also touch on some other aspects of his life, So I thought about going to Craig and saying, okay, pitch me an idea or a question that we could explore. I thought that would be fun to take what I've learned and I'm sharing today and applying it to the episode with Craig.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I were here with Craig, I mean, his books are fine, but like you said, we can go buy a book. You can go buy my book. I can go buy Craig's book. We can learn everything by reading the book. But what I can't do is I can't ask Craig the questions that aren't in the book, right? So right away, I would want to know what his experience is like with the hospice patients, because he's walking in a place that a lot of people are trying to avoid, right? We don't want close to that. So that's why we bring in hospice. So we don't have to deal with that, and he's there. So that would be something that I would like to learn more information from his perspective without actually having to get my hands involved in it. And because I think he's probably got some great stories. It's kind of
Oh,
like Lori Lane, who's another friend of mine I met up in Michigan. She flies people down, like if you're in hospice, she'll fly family members down or fly the hospice patients to a facility, right?
oh, wow.
And
Okay.
she knows when a lot of these people get on the plane, this is the last, maybe the last day or the last couple of days they'll ever have on this earth, right? And so
Wow.
she's in a very unique position, to talk about Jesus. I mean, if they're
Mm-hmm.
open to it, and so is Craig. Anyway,
Yes.
these are things that I would ask Craig, and it's only because, like you said, that's what when you told me that's what he does, I'm like, that's what I want to hear about.
Right. And it goes with his kind of most recent release because it's about narrative nonfiction and memoir. And, like you said, he has a lot of personal stories that lend to memoir writing. So yes, that's great. I'll send him this episode and say, what do you think?
He'll go
But
with it.
I because we will heartily recommend his books because they're all great. And
So it sounds like we've got some work to do then. You and I have to do some research on podcaster PR groups or
yeah,
individuals who are able to hook up. And it sounds like it's probably going to be very much like the blog tour thing that we used to do, where people get you on the blog tour. Except what I'm hearing is this is going to be a whole lot more fun than the blog tour thing, because the
yeah,
blog tour, they would send those to authors and they had to fill out the questionnaire and then make sure there weren't any typos because it's going to be put up on their website. This I can slant. I mean, I can misspell and misspeak all through the podcast, and people go, "Yeah, but it was live, so who cares, right?" They don't expect perfect Eddie on that.
right,
And it's
right.
visual. People like the visual. So I think this is a better route to go. I think.
I think it's fun. I agree. A podcast tour would be great. I mean, just thinking of your most recent release and, um, you know, dressing as a pirate, bringing pirate idioms out, stories out, history out, how much fun
Yeah, that would
that
be fun.
is. Yeah.
And it really would maybe give me the opportunity to be my official alter ego, the pirate preacher, and actually get to start preaching and talking like a pirate, in the gospel.
Yeah. So,
All right,
well,
so what's your final thought or comment on this today that you want our audience to hear?
I would just like everybody to really clearly write down how you would tell somebody who you are and what you have to bring to the table. And I think once you have that, then you're going to go in and start researching podcasters and build the other little elements around there, and you're going to be good to go.
I like that. I like that. Well, my final comment has nothing to do with today's episode. This is more of a prayer request for the people that are watching this episode. So,
Okay.
and as we talked about, we're flying out this Friday for Florence, Italy, and I'm taking Jesus with me to Italy. We weren't going to pack him, and I thought about it, and I was like, no, I got to take Jesus to Italy. Who knows when Jesus gets to go to Italy again? So anyway, I'm taking my Bible with me to Italy, and I'm looking forward to sitting in a small cafe with a nice cup of coffee and my Bible. And so just pray that I have a good time and that God speaks to me in a way that maybe he hasn't been able to with all the trappings of US. So anyway, that's my prayer request for going out for me.
Yes. Yeah. And for safety to and fro.
Yeah.
And all of that. Yes, that's fabulous. We will be faithful to pray for you, Eddie,
All
and
right.
Look forward to hearing reports back when post photos on Facebook so we can. Okay. All right, everybody. Bye. We'll see you next week.
See ya.
Okay.